Hello and welcome back to Racing Roundup, where we talk about all things motorsport. And this weekend we had plenty of racing going on, lots of action from the world of British touring cars. Detroit had a doubleheader with both IMSA and IndyCar racing, and the World Endurance Championship took to Portimao. But we will start before the weekend with a bit of World Rallycross news. And last week I kind of bashed the series a bit with the new promoters in particular, about not much really happening in terms of driver announcements, and I was a bit worried about the series. But as soon as I said that, a whole raft of driver announcements came through for this season, and it's actually taken the entry list for the first race of the season up to 8 cars now, which is good to see. I'll walk you through who's racing for who at the moment, because we had the Hansen brothers, the 2019 world champions Timmy Hansen and his brother Kevin Hansen, returning for the family team, racing the Peugeot 208. Niklas Gronholm and Christian Szabo will race for GRX and the rebranded GRX Set World Rallycross team. Timo Scheider was announced for his usual Munich Motorsport drive in the Seat Ibiza, and Rennie Munich, whilst not officially announced, will probably be racing alongside. They had posted a picture on Instagram today about testing for this season's of World Rallycross, where they had 4 different Ibizas in the tent. So maybe four cars for Munich Motorsport this year. We'll wait to find out, but that will certainly be nice to see. Enzo Eid was announced to race for EKS-JC in the Audi S1. And then Kevin Abring will race an uncorrupted Renault Megane, and Ollie O'Donovan is set to make his debut in the series, racing for Team RX Racing, driving a Proton Ibis, which I think will be the first time Proton has raced in the World Rallycross Championship. And a bit of news as well last week from Extreme E. McLaren are set to join the Extreme E Championship in 2022, which is amazing news for the series. Amazing news for electric motorsport overall, as they continue also to potentially join Formula E as well as the World Endurance Championship. But that's a separate point. Great to see McLaren joining the championship next year. They join Cupra and Hummer as manufacturers that are connected to Extreme E already. But not so good news regarding this year, with the Brazil and Argentina rounds, the last 2 rounds of the season, both being cancelled due to COVID. But the championship has said that they are looking for replacements for the final 2 races of the season. On to the weekend's action, and British touring cars took to Snetterton for the second round of the 2021 season. In qualifying, they were once again trialling the top 10 shootout qualifying, which is just a simple system where the top 10 go through to a separate session to decide the grid results for positions 1 through 10. And on top of that, it was Gordon Shedden who took the fastest time, but was sadly disqualified from qualifying after his rear wing was found to be just 1 degree out. And Shedden saying after that actually the way it was out actually hindered the car, if anything. But realistically, 1 degree out isn't going to make any performance difference whatsoever. But rules are rules, and he was unfortunately disqualified, which meant Colin Turkington ended up inheriting pole position, the 4-time champion. But going into the weekend, we had Jessica Hawkins replacing Andy Neate, of course, which I mentioned last time out, and some amazing results from her. She ended up qualifying ahead of Jason Plato, the winningest driver in BTCC, and she ended up qualifying P17. Amazing result for her. In the first race, it was Turkington who managed to fend off Tom Ingram in the Accelerate Hyundai for the win, with Rory Butcher coming home in third, getting a first good result in for the season after his move to Toyota. He struggled a lot in the first race of the season at Thruxton. In the second race, however, Ash Sutton had a stunning drive from 11th to take the win, overtaking Colin Turkington towards the end of the race on the soft tyres. Another driver who was on the soft tyres, Ollie Jackson in the MB Motorsport Ford, had a very good race, jumping from 5th on the grid to 2nd on the first lap, and unfortunately dropped back to 3rd at the end of the race. But amazing defending from Ollie Jackson to get that podium, whilst Colin Turkington came home in 2nd. And then in the final race, Stephen Jelley was once again drawn on the reverse grid pole like the first race of this year, meaning it was an all Team BMW front row with Tom Oliphant alongside, but the two teammates collided in the early stages of the final race of the day. A bit embarrassing for them, but it happened, and that meant Tom Ingram came through to take his first win of the season and the first victory for the team, Accelerate Motorsport, and the first ever victory for a Hyundai car in the British Touring Car Championship. So that's great to see the South Korean manufacturer getting up onto the top step of the podium. Ash Sutton came home in second, and Gordon Shedden ended up in third place in the Halfords Racing with Cataclean Honda to round off another tricky weekend for the three-time champion, unfortunately for him. But that means in the championship it is Ash Sutton, the reigning champion, who leads for Laser Tools Racing on 80 points, just 2 points ahead of Tom Ingram in the Ginsters Accelerate Motorsport with TradePricecars.com team on 78 points, and then Colin Turkinson in third in the Team BMW on 75 points. And in the Teams Championship it is Laser Tools that lead on 103 points, 3 points ahead of Team BMW on 100, and MB Motorsport are third on 98 points. The World Endurance Championship also had their second round of the season, this time at Portugal for the 8 Hours of Portimao. And it marked the 100th race for Toyota in LMP1 and in the World Endurance Championship, but also marks the first race for Glickenhaus. They debuted their 007 hypercar in the World Endurance Championship for the first time this weekend. Only one car this weekend in Portugal. They plan to run two cars in both Monza and Le Mans. But a tricky race for Glickenhaus. Unfortunately, they qualified in the midfield of the LMP2 cars, and in the race were unfortunately caught up in a collision with two of the GTE AM cars, which meant they ended up finishing right down towards the bottom of the finish sheet. I think they may have even been classified last. So tricky christening to the World Endurance Championship for Glickenhaus. I'm sure they'll come on strong though in the next round in Monza and Le Mans when the second car comes along to compete as well. But it was Alpine who were on pole position for the first time in hypercar and first time in the top class for them. Unfortunately, they weren't able to hold on to the victory as both Toyotas ended up coming through thanks to their advantage on fuel being hybrids, which means the Toyota number 8 came through to take the win, the second win in 2 races this year for Sebastian Buemi, Brendan Hartley and Kazuki Nakajima. The number 7 coming second with Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi and Jose Maria Lopez, and Alpine classified third at the end of the day with Nicolas Lapierre, André Negrão and Mathieu Vaxivière. Which means in the hypercar standings, Toyota number 8 lead on 63 points ahead of Toyota number 7 on 43, and Alpine are third, just 1 point behind on 42. In LMP2, it was Tom Blomqvist who took the Jota Sport number 28 to pole position, but on the first lap of the race, just the third corner of the race, the two Jota teammates ended up coming together, the Blomqvist car spinning round and dropping to the back of the field, unfortunately, but both cars ended up coming through, fighting through the field, and ended up taking a 1-2 victory in LMP2. Almost taking each other out again towards the end of the race, but some clean racing saw the number 38 Jota Sports car come through to take the victory, with a home win for Antonio Felix da Costa alongside his co-drivers Anthony Davidson and Roberto Gonzalez. Stoffel van Dorn, Tom Blomqvist and Sean Collaro in the 28 car were second, and then United Autosports were third with Paul de Vesta, Phil Hansen and Wayne Boyd, which means in the championship there, in LMP2 it is the number 38 Jota who lead on 56 points. Phil Hansen is the only representative for United Autosports second on 29 points because Phil Hansen and Wayne Boyd were not present for the team at Spa. They're not their regular drivers in the number 22. And Jota Sport number 28 are third on 43 points. In GTE Pro, it was Ferrari who ended up dominating the day, the number 51 AF course coming home to take the win with James Collado and Alessandro Pierguidi, and the 52 car of Daniel Serra and Miguel Molina second, and the number 92 Porsche came home in third, with a 3-car lineup of Neil Jani, Kevin Estre and Michael Christensen joining the team before their assault at Le Mans, which means in the standings it is the number 51 AF Corsa leading on 56 points, 6 points ahead of the 92 of the 92 Porsche, and then AF Corsa number 52 are third on 42 points. And finally in GTE AM, Kettelar Racing came home for a stunning victory for Antonio Fuoco, Roberto Lacorte and Giorgio Sanaghiotto. Second place is the number 56 Team Project 1 car of Matteo Cairoli, Egidio Perfetti and Riccardo Pera. And in third it was the number 54 AF Corse of Giancarlo Fisichella, former Formula 1 driver, Francesco Castellacci and Thomas Floor, which means in the GTE AM standings, Kettelar Racing lead on 53 points after 2 successful races so far. AF Corse 54 are second on 35 points, and then the TF Sport number 33 after a tricky weekend in Portimao are down to third on 28 points. IndyCar took to the Belle Isle Street Circus for the Chevrolet Grand Prix of Detroit, and a special weekend indeed for IndyCar because it was the double header weekend they share with the IMSA Championship, but we'll talk about IMSA in a second. We'll talk about IndyCar first. The first race on Saturday, Pato O'Ward was on the pole position for McLaren, but it was a bittersweet weekend for McLaren, especially on Saturday because Felix Rosenqvist in the second McLaren suffered a huge accident thanks to stuck throttle going into one of the corners, and a massive accident. The car firing up into the air after it hit the barrier, nearly vaulting over the catch fence. The whole concrete blocks at the bottom of the catch fence were broken, and the red flag unsurprisingly was shown, and it took a while for Felix to be recovered from the car. Thankfully no major injuries at all. Somehow it was a huge hit, so and a lot of people were very worried, especially when he was extracted from the car with a neck brace. That got a lot of people worried, but thankfully Felix is all okay. He was replaced for the Sunday race by Oliver Askew, who drove for the team last year, but not the way Felix would want his weekend to go, of course, but the important thing is that he is okay. Romain Grosjean also had a difficult race as well. He qualified on both days really well, just unfortunately got caught up in different incidents in the race. He suffered an accident towards the end of the race, which brought out a red flag again actually, but that's just so the race could finish under green, have a few laps at the end to be like in F1 in Baku, so it wasn't a big accident, but it put him out of the race unfortunately. But that red flag was crucial in the race results, because leader at the time, Will Power, who was having a very good race, his best race of the season by far, his car wouldn't fire up, it would not restart, and ended up retiring, or ended up having to not take the restart. So he ended up joining the race after a lap or so, but it was plumb last in the classification. He was understandably extremely annoyed, as anyone would be, losing a win like that. But someone who was incredibly happy was Marcus Ericsson, who came through to take the victory. His first win since 2013 in GP2 at the Nürburgring. Amazing to see Ericsson take the victory for Chip Ganassi Racing after spending so many years in, it's safe to say, backmarker teams in Formula 1, Caterham and Sauber. Awesome to see Ericsson on the top step of the podium once again. Rinus VeeKay came home in second for Ed Carpenter Racing, and Patricio O'Ward third for McLaren. But O'Ward would go one step further on, well, I say one step, he goes 2 steps further on the Sunday with a ridiculously good drive. Onto that in a second though, because it was Joseph Newgarden on the pole, and he dominated the race until the last 3 laps. He led all bar 3 of the laps, but Patricio O'Ward coming through, absolutely smashing the 2 late race restarts that were had thanks to separate incidents. Amazing result for Patricio O'Ward. It nearly was a disaster at the start between Grosjean, Rossi and Dixon. They all collided at the first corner, somehow all of them surviving. Not so good for Max Chilton though, because at the third corner he rode into the back of Sebastian Bourdais after Bourdais had to check up. That put Chilton out of the race. Unfortunately, Bourdais at least could carry on. And Romain Grosjean, surely having flashbacks to Bahrain after his front brakes caught fire after spinning. But Grosjean, being the amazing person he is, managed to get hold of a fire extinguisher and run back to the car to try and put the fire out. Awesome to see from Romain. He's not letting any of his life get away from him after that crash in Bahrain. Shame that he retired though. That's 2 races in a row that he had to retire. But amazing pace in qualifying, just got unlucky in the races. But Patricio O'Ward, wow, absolutely stunning. He went from 5th to 1st, making passes at the very start of the restart into the first corner both times, at a corner that isn't really an overtaking opportunity. Just managing to dive down the inside of the driver ahead of him both times. Just incredible stuff really from O'Ward, and that has rewarded him with the lead of the championship. After that victory, he leads on 299 points, ahead of Alex Palou in second, who came third in the race, in the second race of the weekend, on 198 points, just 1 point separating them going into the next race at Road America, and Scott Dixon down in third on 263 points. As I said earlier, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship was also racing at Detroit for their double header. They had their 1 hour 40-minute race on Saturday, and it was a great day for Chip Ganassi Racing, with victories in IndyCar on Saturday and in the IMSA Championship as well, with Wenger van der Zande and Kevin Magnussen taking their first victories of the season. After a tricky start to the season for the team in IMSA, it was Kevin Magnussen's first win in 8 years as well, similar to Marcus Ericsson. So a feel-good day in Detroit on Saturday, despite the incident, obviously, of Felix Rosenqvist. It was a non-points race for GTLM, which meant only Corvette bothered to enter, which is fair enough. They just used it as a test session really and tried not to crash into each other. And in GTD, the points would only go towards the Sprint Cup and not the overall championship. So you could say it was a bit like a non-points race for the overall championship, so to say. But it was a normal race for DPI, the top category. Chip Ganassi Racing coming home to take the win with Magnussen and van der Zande. Wellen Engineering just lost out to them in second. It was a good battle between them towards the end of the race, with Felipe Nasr and Pico Giovanni. And there was a fierce battle for third place with between 3 cars. But it was Wayne Taylor Racing who came out on top, with Ricky Taylor and Philippe Albuquerque. Which means in the standings for them, Wayne Taylor Racing do lead on 1,398 points. Mazda Motorsports, despite a slightly poor weekend this weekend, are second on 1,327 points. And then Wellen Engineering are third on 1,270 points. In GTLM, it was the number 4 Corvette of Tommy Milner and Nick Tandy who came home ahead of the number 3 car of Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor. And then in GTD, Heart of Racing took their first victory in IMSA with Ross Gunn and Roman De Angelis. The GRT Grasser Racing Team Lamborghini number 19 was second, of Marco Mappelli and Misha Guigberg. And then in third, the Gradient Racing Acura, making their first race appearance of the season, was third with Mark Miller and Till Betscholsheimer. Betscholsheimer? Something like that, we'll go with that. But no points going towards the overall championship for either category. NASCAR also had a non-championship race this weekend with the All-Star Race taking place at the Texas Motor Speedway. The race for $1 million, as they call it, because the winner wins $1 million. Funny how things work, isn't it? And Kyle Larson continued his dominant form to take the victory and the $1 million that come with it for Hendrick Motorsport. Brad Keselowski came home in second for Team Penske, and the reigning champion Chase Elliott third, also for Hendrick Motorsports. And that's your lot for this week. Next week there is a lot going on. Too much, frankly, to be honest. It's going to be difficult to keep up with it all. We've got Formula 1 and Formula 3 for the French Grand Prix. Formula E are at Puebla for the first time for the Mexican race this season, or 2 races I should say, double header of course. DTM finally gets underway for its new era of GT3 cars at Monza. MotoGP are having their German Grand Prix. IndyCar, Road America, like I mentioned earlier. Super Formula are back at Sugo. NASCAR will be racing at Nashville Motor Speedway, and Supercars will be at Hidden Valley. That's a lot going on. It could be a long video next week. I'll try to keep it brief. But looking forward to it nevertheless. It should make for an entertaining weekend. Just got to get through the week now to get there. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of your day whilst it's nice and sunny as well. But that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. You know what to do. And I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.